Hey, this is Chris with Hacking Your Leadership. On today's discussion on employee engagement, I want to talk about how you, as a leader who might be wanting to move into a different organization or a company, how to tell when you're going into these organizations that you are applying for jobs at, whether or not the culture of that organization is one that is aligned with your values, or if it's more on the toxic side. And I've been in situations where I, looking in hindsight, should have seen the red flags and didn't, because I didn't ask the right questions during the interview process or the hiring process, because I approached the process from the standpoint of, it's just me interviewing for the job, and these people I'm talking to are the gatekeepers of this role, instead of looking at it in the right way, which is that both you and that organization are interviewing each other to see if it is a match for you. So you have to look at it as that you're interviewing them for a potential place in your life, just like they're interviewing you for a potential place in the organization. There has to be that feeling of reciprocity, and that it allows both people, the company and the applicant, the opportunity to see whether or not this is a good fit. And if it's not a good fit, it could be not a good fit because the company decides that, or it could be not a good fit because you decide that. But there are questions that you should be going into the hiring process with that will allow you to more accurately figure out whether or not the culture at that organization aligns with you and your values. So you're not discovering this stuff after you've signed the job acceptance letter and you start working, and then you start uncovering things that make you go, wait a minute, this is not what I expected.
Yeah, and I can understand that, like, look, when you're applying for jobs, you're looking to, get a role, and maybe not just like you're already there, so like promotions, different things like that, but you're trying to get a job somewhere new or for the first time or whatever the case is, that it can feel very much like you are trying to prove yourself in the entire process and you're just trying to get the job.
Right.
And I know that, so I know, because I hear this a lot, we talk about it a lot around, like, it is them selecting you, it's also you selecting them. Yes, that is in fact true. However, I also know that most of the kind of stress / anxiety of that process is going to fall on the person who's trying to get a job.
Right.
So there are things that it's kind of like, I'm willing to deal with some of this, and I'll figure it out when I get there. I think what we're talking about is in a space where you have a skill, you have a competence, you are looking at doing maybe the same job in different places, where you're really trying to dial into, is this a place that I want to be? And is this a place that I see not only where I can be successful, but is moving in the right direction? And I think that's I want to call that out, because this doesn't apply to everyone. And I know it can be really hard to think about, well, am I a right fit? I'm just trying to get in, I'll figure that out. But if you can avoid having the experience and the frustration of getting into some place and it not being what you are thinking it was, or not being healthy, or not being aligned with what you're trying to accomplish, then in fact that can waste your time. You know what I mean? Because going to do a job for a handful of months and being like, I just don't like it here, and then getting back into the job market, there could have been other choices. So I just want to kind of preface all of that. But I say all of that because I think it's important to kind of call out some of the context of where people may be in the situation. But it is really important that you are in an interview process, that you are asking questions, picking up on nuance, taking in cues, because this decision to go work somewhere is going to have an impact on what you're going to learn, how you're going to grow, what future opportunities will look like. And I would rather know upfront if I get the vibes that this is not going to be a good fit, and I'd rather know upfront that I get the vibes that I might not have the support that I need to be successful here. I'd like to know that at the beginning. If I can, then when I'm a couple of months, couple of weeks, a year down the road, and realizing that there's nothing for me to gain here, I'm going to have to start that whole process over again.
Right. The backlash or the fallout that would arise from having 3 jobs in 5 years on a resume isn't what it used to be, right? So you don't have to worry about that. But that doesn't mean that you still want to do that. It doesn't mean that you want to waste the time doing that. If you're leaving a job for another after a year or a year and a half, not because it's a toxic workplace, but because you see another great opportunity to advance your career, that's fine. That's a good reason to have 3 jobs in 5 years. What's not a good reason to have 3 jobs in 5 years is that you can't stand the places you start at and then have to start the process all over again. That's not good for your mental health, your work-life balance, the upheaval to your, potential financial situation or whatever, work-life balance you have in place. So, it's good to kind of hedge your bets in the beginning to try to at least do your best to figure out whether or not a place that you are, interviewing at is a place that you could see yourself not just enjoying, but thriving in. And there's a difference between just getting by and thriving, and that really hinges on the organizational values aligning with your personal values. And there are plenty of organizations that align with my personal values and plenty that do not. That doesn't make them bad organizations. It just makes them maybe not a fit for me. So I'm going to go through some of these questions that you should be asking during the interview and hiring process that can kind of lend some insight as to whether or not you want to continue down this path, or if you want to, take your business as a worker elsewhere. But first, I want to get up to word for one of our sponsors. All right, if you're trying to figure out whether or not a potential employer is a fit for you culturally, there are some easy questions you can start out with when it comes to the people you're talking to within the organization. One of which is just, hey, how do you love the culture at this workplace, and how has it allowed you to be more successful at work? What you're listening for here is a lack of answer to begin with, or one that is kind of made up on the fly, because that would imply that the culture is not something that either A, that they think about at all, or B, that it doesn't align with them and they don't have an example of how it has helped them be more successful, and they're just kind of blowing smoke. So, if you have an individual who loves the culture of the organization and they can talk about how it's made them more successful, then that means that that organization is a cultural fit for them. But that example that you hear will help inform you whether or not it's a cultural fit for you. Not having an answer to begin with is a red flag, or there could be a great example they can give to you, but that also informs you that it is not the right culture for you, even though they happen to be thriving there.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I think it's important to to ask. We get a lot of typical questions about things around the work or what's advice you have? One of my favorite questions is always kind of like, if I was to get this job or get this role, in the next, 6 months, what would you tell me that I did well that made me a successful, in this role? Understand from the person in the interview what their expectations are of the job. I love that type of question. But when you're talking about going to a new organization and you're talking to a leader that would be your direct leader or somebody who's a major part of talent selection, asking questions about their experience, asking questions for them to kind of share with you what's made them stay, or a success story of the company at their best. If they struggle with some of those types of questions, that should be a major element of well, hold on. If you're the one selecting talent, or you're the one I'm going to work for, and you're not capable of quickly telling me the benefits of the job or the culture, the environment, that's going to be really hard for me to feel like I'm going to get anything different.
Yeah, I agree with that. The last one that I want to say that I love is, I like asking people what they found unexpected about the organizational culture. And I use the word unexpected because I don't want to inherently imply it's a positive or a negative. I just want to hear what they have to say. But if you're talking to a person in the organization about what they think about the company culture, asking them, hey, what's something that you found unexpected about the organizational culture, that was something that you had to either get used to or that you didn't see coming. And they can use that as an opportunity to tell you something either positive or negative. But what they say and what they don't say will tell you a lot about that culture, or whether or not they have an answer to begin with. So if there's nothing they can think of, then that implies that there isn't a strong enough culture one way or another, which can imply a toxic culture to begin with. But if they have a clear answer on what they found unexpected about the culture, either positively or negatively, then that's a good sign that company culture is something that matters here, like whatever it is. And then you are more able to figure out whether that culture is a fit for you or not. But this, kind of the vague answers are the ones that you really want to look at as red flags. If people don't have clear answers about what they can speak to when it comes to how they fit into the culture, then that can be a problem. Thank you all for joining us in this discussion on employee engagement. We'll see you next Thursday for the next one. You have a great day.